Hello people. This is a weird thing to me, or it's probably not weird, there's probably a perfectly reasonable explanation, but I was sure I made a video previously on exactly the image that's in front of your screen now. I remember quite distinctly making it. I remember trying to find my words while I was making it. I was pretty sure it had this same image on the screen. I remember looking at it with pride when I'd finished it, and now it's gone. And not only is it gone from the YouTube channel itself, but it's gone from my personal computer. I cannot find it anywhere. So perhaps it is still there, or maybe I have an incorrect memory, but for some reason a video that I was sure I already made is not there, so I'm remaking it. And this is such a fundamental, foundational point that it really should have been further back on my YouTube channel. So this is the recount of Stefan Molyneux's podcast. His podcast number is 5192. Now I'm just going to put Stefan Molyneux's chart up here quick, and I would say that his information here has come from right up at the 6447, whereas when I talk about this, my own thoughts come from the 1156. So when I think about this subject, I think of it in more structural, slightly more grounded terms. So one of the things that I've talked about is, if somebody forgives without contrition, is that a real thing, or is that something false that they're telling themselves? Because how much control do we have over our own emotions? If someone forgives without contrition, what is the evidence of that? Because if I'm angry at someone every day and then I say publicly I forgive them, what's to stop me feeling angry about it on the day following? There's no physical measure of that's reality. Whereas if the person did offer contrition and then you decided to meet with them and get on with them, then that would be proof in the real world that the forgiveness had happened. But yeah, I've skipped a step there. What I'm going to talk about is this show from Stefan Molyneux, and the subject is the impropriety, the negativity of the concept of forgiveness without contrition. Stefan lays this case out very, very passionately. He does an amazing job. I'm describing his work in this segment. I'm not trying to summarize it in a way that is really enough without his input. But even so, if I do this video, there will probably be people that watch my video and then don't follow on with his video. But life is as it is. Anyway, in this very passionate segment, again as shown on the image 512 at 5192, at www.fdrpodcast.com, Stefan states a few different things, a few things that changed the way I look at it from before and after I listened to the show, because one of his points here, the strategic lie, is something that I didn't have words to articulate. He mentioned several concepts. I'll talk about them in no particular order. One of them is this idea that you get from people preaching this idea of forgiveness without contrition as being beneficial, that if you don't forgive, you will be consumed by regret. Like if you forgive for yourself, if you don't forgive, you'll spend the rest of your life angry and all this kinds of stuff. And what he says about that is that it's pure projection. It's the person that's done the crappy thing that is the one that is burning up inside. The person that is being put under pressure to forgive without contrition, and that's a really nasty form of emotional blackmail if you think about it. They can live quite happily without forgiving someone, especially if forgiveness would open the door to that person yet again being unpleasant. And he says, in a sense, that forgiveness to the unearned is cruel in a way, because it is if someone does something crap to me and then I say, oh, that's okay, I forgive you, I'm not giving them any feedback in the real world that their behavior is crap. So say it was someone that was narcissistic, and say they tried to convince me that something was true that wasn't true for a long period of time for some weird agenda. Now, someone that lies to others will lie to themselves. And if they're forgiven for this behavior, I'll come to some more points on that. But if they're forgiven for this behavior, if it's like, oh, it's all okay, then they never get that feedback of, yeah, you shouldn't go around lying to people and making sure they believe certain things for your agenda. You know, like I say, people lie to themselves. They may not even be completely aware that it's their own agenda. They might have said, oh, I'm gaslighting you for your own good, sort of thing. And forgiveness without contrition is a very unusual thing in that regard. It's a very weird break from the natural feedback mechanisms that we can use to socially improve ourselves sometimes. He also says that if you were to tell someone that isn't admitting their sin as such that you've forgiven them, it will just anger them. They'll be like, well, forgive for what? Like with the example that I said before, if I had known someone that had tried to convince me something was true that wasn't, then I say, I forgive you for lying to me all those times. And they'll be like, lying? Why are you accusing me of lying? I'm not a liar. Why are you accusing me of that? That's the kind of thing, really. Why would you give something to someone that they don't want? That's not all the points that are here, and that's not all the points that he said, and that's not all the context that he gives. But I just wanted to put that out there as a very relevant philosophical concept in relation to living real life, living our real lives, living with the real world as it is, not the fantasy world. I have a lot of other points on why that behavior is dysfunctional, but this specific video was simply focusing on this specific podcast from Stefan Molyneux. I'll put it in the link. I'll put the website in the link. You have to scroll to the podcast, www.fdr Freddy Delta Romeo podcasts with an S at the end .com. Anyway, thank you for listening.